Frank spent 26 years working for a mid-sized energy company, rising from a field technician to a regional operations manager. By his mid-50s, he'd accumulated a 401k worth $1.2 million, an enviable number for someone who'd never earned more than $95,000 in a single year. There was just one detail about that account that Frank never worried about. Nearly 80% of it was invested in his own company's stock, accumulated gradually through employer matches paid in shares, and years of Frank buying more of it himself, because he believed in the company and figured nobody understood its prospects better than someone who'd worked there for a quarter century. 18 months later, after an accounting scandal became public, the stock lost 94% of its value in under a year. Frank's $1.2 million retirement account was worth $71,000. He was 57 years old. Frank's story sits inside a well-documented pattern that shows up whenever a company collapses suddenly. Employees who held concentrated positions in their own employer's stock, inside their retirement accounts, are wiped out at a scale that ordinary market downturns never produce. It isn't a rare exception. Financial researchers studying 401k allocations have repeatedly found that a meaningful share of American workers hold more than 20% of their retirement savings in employer stock, often without ever consciously deciding to take on that level of concentrated risk. It accumulates quietly, through matching contributions and a sense of loyalty, until it represents a dangerously large share of a person's entire financial future. The mechanism behind this kind of loss is simple and almost never explained clearly to employees while it's happening. A diversified portfolio spread across hundreds or thousands of companies can absorb the failure of any single business without catastrophic damage, because no one company represents more than a small fraction of the total. A portfolio concentrated in one employer carries the entire risk of that one business, its management decisions, its industry, its accounting practices, its competitive position, on top of the risk employees already carry by depending on that same company for their paycheck. Losing your job and your retirement savings to the same company failure at the same time isn't a coincidence when the position is concentrated. It's the predictable, mechanical outcome of tying two separate financial risks to one single point of failure. Down the hall from Frank, a colleague named Renata had worked at the same company for 19 years in a similar role, earning a comparable salary. Renata had always redirected employer stock received through matching into a diversified index fund within days of it vesting, a policy she'd set for herself early in her career after reading a single article about concentration risk that she never forgot. When the same scandal broke and the stock collapsed, Renata's retirement account, invested almost entirely in diversified funds unrelated to her employer, dropped less than 4% that year, in line with a broad and temporary market dip that recovered within 18 months. The deeper principle here has nothing to do with predicting which companies will eventually collapse, since almost nobody, including the employees working inside them, sees it coming with enough warning to act. The principle is that conviction and diversification are solving two different problems, and most people quietly sacrifice the second while believing they're simply expressing confidence in the first. Believing strongly in your employer, your industry, or a particular company is not, by itself, a risk management strategy, no matter how well-informed that belief feels from the inside. The employees who avoid Frank's outcome aren't the ones who correctly predict which companies will fail. They're the ones who never let any single belief, however confident, control an amount of money large enough to end their financial life if that belief turned out to be wrong. Frank rebuilt slowly over his remaining working years, delayed retirement by nearly a decade, and now, when asked, gives the same advice to every young employee he meets at his current job. Sell the company's stock the day it vests, no exceptions, regardless of how good the company looks from the inside. Renata never had a story dramatic enough to tell anyone. Her retirement account simply kept growing, undisturbed, through a collapse that ended a colleague's version of the same 26-year career in a single afternoon. The lesson is not to distrust your employer. The lesson is not to avoid company stock completely. The lesson is to avoid letting one investment control your entire future. Diversification is not about expecting failure. It is about preparing for uncertainty, because the biggest financial risks are often the ones we never see coming.